Hi, everyone out there. Hey, my name's Richard O'Brien, and basically I've been in the concrete pumping business since 1970. We were in the plastering and drywall field for a good many years, and as plastering started going down, we went to a plasters convention in Las Vegas, and believe it or not, by the time we left there, we ended up buying 3 concrete pumps in 1970. We bought 3 740 Thompson machines.
Here is the Mobilcrete 740, the most advanced of concrete pumps on the market today. A pump, in fact, that has virtually everything.
And the guy convinced me that I could go out and make lots of money. What a mistake that was for a good many years. Because you can believe it or not, the pump industry had a lot of ups and downs, and particularly our company, whereas we tried to start the concrete pumping in the Denver, Colorado area and get everybody to pump concrete, and we found out immediately there was not that many people that was willing to pump concrete, and we had winners. So basically, I decided after being in the pump business a couple of years that the thing to do was to branch out in the winter time, and then we could take those pumps and use them elsewhere. And we opened our first branch, believe it or not, in Las Vegas, and that must have been the late 70s. We went to Las Vegas, and I thought this would be the place to start at, but back then in Las Vegas, what you had is you had kind of oversized motels is all you had there, and once they'd build one, then they wouldn't build one for a year or two. So naturally we had a bunch of machines down there that would sit idle for a lot of times, and we thought, well, what are we gonna do with them? So then we picked Dallas, Texas to go into to try to keep our equipment busy in Colorado in the wintertime, and also keep our equipment from other areas to stay busy. We was able to stay busy in the Dallas, Texas area for a good many years, and with that we had the big, let's say, drunk, I guess it was a pump drunk, you could say, we went on. And we went out and started buying a lot of concrete pumps to invest in and to open branches in different areas of the country. We probably, at the top of our, I say, expansion, we probably had 8 major brands. We had brands in Utah, we had brands in pumps working out of Dallas, Texas, just about 6 states we was in. And we started expanding more and more in different states, and probably the maximum that we ever reached was probably about 12. And that was, oh gosh, when was that? In the 80s, I believe it was. We had expanded to a lot of different parts of the country, mainly in the energy states, and we also got into the concrete pump business. And then all of a sudden, overnight, somebody shut off the lights because you couldn't even give a concrete pump away. And at that time, we'd also got into the crane business. But you can believe it or not, in the 80s, when the market crashed, we probably had 50 pumps, and I think it was 25 cranes sitting in a field in Dallas, Texas that we couldn't give away. And anyway, to make a long story short, we made a deal with our finance companies to pay them off as much money as we could possibly round up, and sold a lot of ground and sold most of our assets and everything, and was able to come clear of that. And then we naturally started reducing our operations out of Dallas, out of Houston, out of most of the states that was in, and we recouped in Denver, Colorado, and got another start at it. But basically, the pump business has had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and I would say probably in our career that it was mostly downs. And we always had the ambition and drive to try to change that. But I would say that once you get the bug in your system of pumping concrete, it's kind of hard to get rid of, because it just won't leave those veins for some reason or other. But you really think about it today, that I'm still out there fighting the battle, being 84 years old. And as everybody's aware of today, that we did sell our pump division and supposed to kind of retire, but just like all this stuff that gets in your system, once it's there, you just can't get rid of it.
You mentioned that in 1970 you bought your first 3 Thompsons. Who did you buy them from? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was at a plasters convention in Las Vegas, and I bought them from Thompson Equipment Company. Dave Gaston was his name, and plastering and stuff was going downhill. And he says, what you need to do, O'Brien, he says, get into the concrete pumping business. And I says, what are you talking about? Because really we hadn't seen but maybe 1 or 2 pumping concrete in Denver. And anyway, he took me over there, and they had 3 pumps sitting there. And I says, well, tell me something about these and how they work and what do I do? And there was 740 Thompsons mounted on Ford trucks. And he convinced me to buy all 3 of those trucks from him, and it'd make me a hell of a deal, and he'd have them in Denver the next week. He brought them to Denver, Colorado. The big problem that we had, he didn't tell me that what a problem was going to be mounted on those old Ford trucks, getting to the job and back from the job, because the big problem that we was having back in those days, that nobody was spending any money on trucks, that basically you'd either mount them on a new cheap truck or you mount them on an old truck. Nobody invested anything in. So after a year, or just about, not quite a year, I got a call from the Ford dealer, and he says, O'Brien, he says, you got 23 warranties on that truck. And he says, we're not going to honor any more warranties. He says that they're way overweight. They won't handle the loads or anything like that. And anyway, I started talking to some truckers and talking to this guy and talking to that guy, because back then all pumps was being mounted on used trucks or just cheap trucks. And a guy says, well, if you want to really get ahead of the business, he says, you got to make sure that you buy them and you mount them on a good, tough construction truck. And I says, well, what's that? And he says, well, why don't you go ahead and put them on Mack trucks? So I was thinking about it, and you talked about Thompson pumps, and we went to a convention in Texas, Houston, Texas it was, and Bob Weatherton was down there. He had a Thompson 2000, I think it was, and he says, you got to buy one of these things and develop it. And he had it in a shed. He didn't even have it on the floor. And he took all the pumpers down there to look at this Thompson pump. Well, it wasn't complete. It had a big boom on it and everything, the largest boom at the time. And he said, you guys need to get in line to order one of these. And I said, Bob, well, how fast are you going to produce them? And he says, well, we're going to start producing in the next 60 days. And I said, well, that's good. And believe it or not, I went down and I bought 3 Mack trucks, sent them to Bob Weatherton and Thompson Equipment Company in California. And it took me a year and a half to get delivery of my pumps, because he didn't develop develop the pump that fast. So every couple months I'd call Bob. I said, Bob, are you going out there? Are you starting by trucks? And he said, yeah, last week I went out there and I started it up for you. And I said, well, take care of it because I'm making the payments on it. But that was the tops of 2001. But I had to wait a long time for that.
Bob was a good salesman, huh?
Oh yeah, Bob was a con person. That's for darn sure.
60 days turned into a year and a half.
That's right. You know, it's just amazing when you look back on some of those ordeals, how you got caught out of them. You know, just like my ordeal with Todd said, the GMC trucks or the Ford trucks or different things. In the old days, basically most people would buy used trucks and they'd take them to Tops Equipment Company, say in California. Well, what was bad is a lot of times the truck couldn't make it to the plant to get the pump mounted on it, or they couldn't get the truck repaired enough to get it out of the plant with the pump on it because it had too much weight on it.
Right.
So the first years of the concrete pumping business, everybody bought used trucks and old trucks, and the cheapest thing they could buy to put under the pump, so you could afford it. Yeah. So I would say the first 3 or 4 years of the pumping industry, the plague was bad trucks.
Bad truck. And then you started buying Schwings.
And we started buying Schwings, and the reason that we bought Schwings was that we bought our first Schwing pump, KVM 30, from Roger Ferris. He was King and East, I think it was, in Denver, Colorado. There was a steel fabricator, and on the side they was importing Schwing pumps, and Ed Kingman would bring these Schwing pumps in, and Roger told me, he says, you need to buy a Schwing pump. I said, what the hell's a Schwing pump? And he showed me some pictures and stuff like that, and I says, okay, what's the next pump you got? And he says, a KVM 30. And I says, okay, I'll buy that. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, just like a lot of things they was getting from Europe at that time, well, by the time you bought it and by the time they delivered it, the cost of money had changed so much that they had to either raise the price of it or they couldn't sell it to you. So here comes this KVM 30 in that I waited for 6 months, and the price of money exchange went up so much so that Roger hit me up and he says, you got to give me another $5,000. He says, I just can't give it to you at cost. So we ended up buying the KVM 30 from Roger, and we had to pay him another $5,000 because the cost of money went up so high.
Roger was a good salesman too, huh?
Oh yeah, Roger was a good bullshitter even when he was young.
Yeah.
If he couldn't sell it to you, you'd figure out the way he could.
Yeah.
I had just put in my first order to Schwing Equipment Company for a Schwing pump. And I thought, well, if I'm going to buy a Schwing pump, I'm going to go ahead and buy a good truck to mount on it. So I sent my first Mack truck to Schwing Equipment Company, buying my first Schwing, and I called the man that was in charge, and that man's name was, who was in charge of Schwing at the start, or was in charge of it for a long time.
It was before Tom Anderson, right?
It was Tom Anderson.
Was it Tom Anderson?
It was Tom Anderson at that time. That was the guy that I had contact with Schwing. And I'd known Tom before that because he had been working at a small parts company out there. And basically my first Schwing pump that I'd ever bought was imported into the United States in Denver, Colorado by a distributor there. And the distributor there would import them from Germany And Roger Ferris worked for him. And he worked for them doing all their farm work and everything like that. And on the side, they sold swing pumps. And he come over to me one day and he says, well, you need to buy some swing pumps. They're really a good pump, and they're made in Germany and they're made here and they're made really quality. Well, I'd never seen one before. So I says, okay, Roger, you make me a deal on this. KVM 30, they called it. And it was a pump straight up and straight down, darn near. And ordered it from Germany. Took 6 months to come in. And when it come in, I thought, oh my God, this is a cat's meow. This is a new German pump, and it was made real rugged and everything like that. So that was our start of buying swing pumps in this country.
You threw out a couple names, name dropping. Tom Anderson, Dave, what was his name? Dave from Thompson.
God, I can't think of his last name now. He was a sales manager there, Dave.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about though. And then Tom Anderson. Who are some of the guys that worked for you? Because I know a lot of the people in the industry either retiring now or getting close to retiring, or in the business have worked for you.
Well, you know, during our period of time of expansion and so forth and so on, we went through a couple expansion times in the pump industry where we'd opened numerous branches and had a lot of different people that worked for us. And, you know, we've had all the well-known names in the industry, such as Roger Ferris and Bob Weatherton, and gosh, you know, I get to looking back on it, Dale Bone. We've probably had everybody come and go during their lifetime that come through our industry. In fact, one time in Dallas, Texas, I told our people that we cannot continue the way we were doing to hire operators. I says, we don't train them enough. So in Dallas, Texas, for 2 years, I started a pump school. And I hired a teacher, and his name was Dale Maple. And his chore was, for 2 years, is that we'd bring operators in and put them on pumps in the daytime to go out and be trained by an operator, and then put them in the school in the afternoon to have them train on the operation of the pumps and being able to operate them, and also being able to repair them and everything on the job site if something would happen to the pump at that time. And that we was able to continue for about 2 years until the economy in Texas just took a crap that during that recession and everything. And we've been probably, since we've been in the industry, we've probably had 3 or 4 very serious recessions where you couldn't give a pump away, let alone use it on a job site. So all you pumpers out there, when you look at all your expansion and everything that you got going, always make sure, you know, with the ups comes the downs. So always prepare for the downs, because you're gonna have them sometime or other. And I was very fortunate that every time it turned down, that I had accumulated enough real estate and assets that I was able to go out and sell all those assets to make all my creditors 100% whole, and then you'd have to start again. But one of the big things I would hope and wish for, and that I could see it in my lifetime, is that when we started the Pumps Association, one of the things that I really stressed, being a pumper, is that we would have branches all over the United States, that all the major cities, that we'd have all the local pumpers meet together and come up with some camaraderie and everything.
how did the American Concrete Pumping Association get started?
American Concrete Pumpers Association, when I asked that guy to come down from New York, he come down here, and he was an Italian fireproofer, and he come down and he was going to show us how to set up an association. So I brought him to Denver, paid for him to come to Denver to start an association in Denver, Colorado for the concrete pumpers and for a couple other trades. Well, there was no way in heck that anybody in Denver would agree to join in the Concrete Pumpers Association at that time, and started an association. And there was basically 4 or 5 guys that were starting in the pumping industry at that time. So I contacted Bob Weatherton, and I said, Bob, I says, I can't get anybody in Denver, Colorado to join the Pumpers Association. I says, I think it would make a viable thing, and I explained to him how it was working in New York and all the bigger cities and stuff like that. I says, let's get one started in California. And he says it might work. He says, will you come out here and talk to the pumpers? And I got on a plane the next week, and I went to California, and I met with the pumping. There was, I think, 5 or 6 people at the meeting that with Bob, and everybody thought it was a good idea for us to start an association. And in California, they was behind it, and I couldn't get anybody there in Denver to do it. So what we was able to do is that was able to have somebody out there, and I can't recall his name right now, get the association going, and we started a local chapter, and from there we was able to start spreading it throughout the United States.
Was that Don?
Don, I think that's correct, Don, I can't think of his name, running the association, and we devoted a tremendous amount of time to it. At that time, Pete Horner was working with us.
Pete Warner?
Pete Horner and
Horner, yeah. Who else?
And I'm trying to get some other names.
Was Murley? Is Murley out there?
Murley was out there. They were behind it. There was 4 or 5 guys that was really behind it in the California market. And we were able to get the thing going in the California market. And Bob really worked at it, and well as a couple other guys, as they started traveling throughout the United States. And we traveled a little bit, but pretty limited, but most people started promoting the association, and then it just started growing slowly, but it initially started in California because we couldn't get enough members in Denver to participate.
So, I mean, honestly, you're like the founder of the ACPA.
Yeah, I guess I was the one that pushed the thing to get started and everything. Since I couldn't get it going in Denver, I went to Bob in California, and we got it going in California.
Was that at the Queen Mary?
Yeah, that was where we really started the thing off. You know, it initially started off, and then we had a big meeting on the Queen Mary.
Okay.
And so forth and so on. But there was a lot of guys out there that really worked their buns off trying to get the thing going.
Yeah. What about the world of concrete? Did you have anything to do with that, getting that started?
Yeah. Originally, you know, the world of concrete goes back a good many years. I really got a grasp of that, of how we got started with that, is that we had a couple showings at some hotels, kind of.
Well, I wish I would have used Roger Ferris or Dave Gastone's tactic and told you 20 years ago, Richard, you need to buy Pump Magic. Because I know that we've become friends over the years and talked quite a bit, but I think I probably just never tried hard enough to sell you.
Maybe that must have been it.
So,
Well, maybe that's why we remain friends.
yeah, probably. But I really am honored to have known you over the years.
Well, listen, the pump industry has been a very, very challenging industry. But thanks a lot for the amount of time and everything that you've given me during this little get-together. And I will do everything in my power from here on out, and always have, to help you guys come out with what your true costs are and charge for your services. Thank you very much. Rich O'Brien.